Hey, what is up guys, it is Arbin Hardware with a brand new video. Today we're gonna build your next $1100 gaming PC featuring Intel's brand new 6-core 11th Gen Core i5 CPU and AMD's Radeon RX 6700 XT graphics card. Now in today's video I'm gonna run you guys through the entire build process step by step, how you can put this PC build together too before booting the system up and testing out the gaming performance in some of the current most popular games, including ray tracing, cause as you guys may know, ray tracing is now finally supported on all new Radeon GPUs. We're gonna benchmark all games in 1080p max settings, but we're also gonna look at 1440p high settings too, all to give you guys an idea what to expect in case you decide to build this PC too. And you can easily find all PC parts I'm using linked up in the video description below. Now before we get into the video, hey, my name is Robin and on this channel we benchmark and build gaming PCs using both the latest and used PC parts to help you decide what PC parts to pick. And so if that is something you're interested in, smash up the like button down below and hit the subscribe button and notification bell and let me know what price target we should try and hit for future videos on the channel. Now speaking of pricing, this machine will cost you around $1100 using the listed parts. Now at this budget you will be able to max out all games out there at 1080p max settings. 1440p will also run well above 60 FPS, but even 4K resolution is certainly possible too with a few graphics tweaks. We're gonna dive into the gaming performance in much greater detail after we completed the build. So let's get started with the base of today's build, CPU, RAM and motherboard, and for today's build I ended up picking the Prime Plus from Asus, coming in at around $140. Now I think the Prime Plus offers a great mix between price, performance and features. Alright, so let's go ahead and install our processor, and for today's build I gone with Intel's Core i5 11100 400F, coming in at around $175. Now this is a 6-core CPU with 12 threads with a base clock of 2.6 and 4.4 GHz turbo. Now if we have a look at the gaming performance, we see that the 11100 400F is a very compelling CPU for its price tag. Now I think opting for a 6-core processor offers a great sweet spot or middle ground between price and performance in 2021. Now installing the processor in its socket is easy. First you want to depress the lever on the side, push it down while you push it out. Taking a look at the socket, we see that there is a notch here and here, and these two lines up with the notches on the processor. So you simply want to turn the CPU so these notches lines up. And the CPU should fold in nicely, lower the clamp and the CPU cover should pop off. Now a cooler is included with the 11100 400F, and if you're curious about the stock cooler and what temperatures and frame rate you can expect using the included heatsink, have a look at my previous 11100 400 and RTX 3060 build on the channel. In today's video however, we're gonna go with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 240, coming in at $99. And with two 120 fans on a 240 radiator, the $99 liquid freezer is the ultimate go-to pick for any budget PC build. The cooler installment is pretty simple. Now in order to secure the pump or water block onto the CPU, we need to add this backplate and these standoffs, and that's it for now. Now we're going to install the radiator once we have secured the motherboard in the case. For system memory, we're gonna go with this black G-Skill kit, coming in at around $80 to $88. And installing these is simple. For optimal performance, we're gonna populate the gray slot, so simply pull back the toggle for the second and for dim slot and plug them in just like so. Now we can go ahead and install our M.2 storage device with half a terabyte worth of space. And this is enough to fit quite a few games actually. And keep in mind guys, you can always install another NVMe drive later on, as the motherboard has support for another one as well. So we want to locate the M.2 slot, which we find right here towards the bottom of the motherboard. And so what you want to do is you want to look up a tiny plastic bag, which we find inside the motherboard box. Gently slide the M.2 unit into the socket with a 45-degree angle, with the little notch lining up with the corresponding notch on the motherboard. Then take the little screw you find in the plastic bag, hold it down just like so, and screw it down until it stops. And now we can go ahead and move our whole base of our build and install it in our case. And in this build I ended up picking the NZXT H510, coming in at $66. Now 2 120mm fans comes pre-installed, one at the top and another one at the rear. Now NZXT is selling 2 variants. If you're not interested in being able to set custom fan curves and play around with addressable RGB, you can get away a bit cheaper here. Keep in mind guys, I am demonstrating on the slightly more expensive NZXT H510i. Now in order to get access to the interior of the case, all we need to do is undo this single thumb screw to get rid of the tempered glass side window. Now we're going to install our I/O shield, which we find inside our motherboard box, and this one goes in from the back of the case with the circular audio ports here you see located at the bottom. Now we can go ahead and slide our whole assembly into place, and we're gonna use the screws that comes provided by NZXT. And with the board installed, before we move on to power supply and graphics, now is a good time to connect the chassis cables that takes care of the front audio and USB, as well as the power button. Let's start with USB 3, and this is what this cable looks like. The connector is located at the right side, mid-right side of the motherboard. Moving on to front audio, and this cable goes on to the left side corner. Lastly, we have the front panel connector, and you find this on the lower right side. With that done, we can finally go ahead and finish up with our CPU cooler. Now we're going to mount the radiator at the front with the 2 fans operating in a pull configuration. We then secure the water block using the included 4 thumb screws. Lastly guys, don't forget to connect the fan power cable to the CPU cooler to the CPU fan header on the motherboard. Now because this is a budget oriented PC build, we're gonna go with the slightly cheaper power supply, although keep in mind guys, Corsair is only making quality power supplies. Anyway, we're gonna go with a CX 650 watt unit with 80 plus bronze efficiency certification. Now because I didn't have the CX at the studio, I am demonstrating on the CV550. Anyway, make sure you got the fan facing downwards, then gently slide the PCU into place and secure it. We're gonna do a couple of cables and wiring, before we installing our graphics. And first up, we got the 24-pin power for our motherboard, and this one goes to a connector on the right side. Next up, we got this 8-pin power, and this is for our CPU, and this one goes all the way up to the top left side corner. Last but definitely not least, we got graphics, and for today's build guys, we find the Radeon RX 6700 XT, this particular one coming from XFX with their massive 2-slot triple fan cooler. Based on the RDNA2 architecture, the 6700 XT offers amazing 1440p gaming experience. However, that being said, both 4K and 1080p resolutions certainly runs great on this GPU. Also guys, prices on GPUs are upside down right now. You probably already know about this. Hopefully, the situation gets better as we get closer to summer. Anyway, plug in the graphics card and take these 2 dual PCIe cables and plug both into our graphics card just like so. What is left to do is just to flip the case around, whack on the side panel, and we have officially completed our $1100 gaming PC build. Let's fire up some games and let's have a look at what the PC performs like. So on your screen now guys, we are looking at the performance numbers that I gathered from today's build, and I ended up running 15 games in both 1080p max settings as well as 1440p max settings as well. And as can be seen, yeah, the 6700 XT holds up extremely well. It is clear that Intel's done a great job with their new Core i5 CPUs, and there is no doubt about it. The 11400F, what a brilliant 2021 budget CPU pick. Pairing up the 11400F with a decent cooler, the CPU is brutal, delivering silky smooth framerate and FPS. But yeah, with that said, let's have a greater look at some of the games tested, and first up we have Horizon Zero Dawn. Starting at 1080p, where I went for the highest setting that the game offers. Now as we can see, we're able to reach around 112 FPS. Moving on to 1440p, and this time I went for the favor performance preset, and here we achieved about 87 FPS. Next up we have Death Stranding at 1080p max settings, and this results in an average of 152 FPS. At 1440p we saw 128 FPS on average, again using the highest setting that the game offers. Moving on to CSGO, once again starting at 1080p, and this time I'm going for competitive settings, and this results in about 380-ish FPS on average. Jumping to 1440p with these same graphic settings results in about 350 FPS on average. Doom Eternal is next, and here I'm opting for the Ultra Nightmare graphic settings. Let's begin with 1080p. This results in about 244 FPS. At 1440p we saw 154 FPS, again with the game maxed out. Moving on to Overwatch, using the Ultra settings, results in about 230 FPS. At 1080p resolution, at 1440p we saw around 162 FPS. Valorant runs very smooth as well, with an average of over 228 FPS. And if we look at the settings, I went for everything maxed out. This is at 1080p. At 1440p we still saw around 220 FPS. One of the most anticipated games of 2020 and 2021 perhaps, Cyberpunk 2077. Let's start with 1080p maxed out. Using the Ultra preset, this results in about 83 FPS on average. Mind you guys, this is with ray tracing turned off. Stepping up to 1440p, we're able to reach almost 60 FPS, and if we look at the settings, you guys can see that I went for the Ultra preset, but once again with ray tracing turned off. As a bonus guys, here is a ray tracing comparison between AMD's latest GPUs stand against Nvidia's latest offerings. And as we can see, yeah, although AMD now offers ray tracing support on their GPUs, Radeon GPUs are unfortunately not delivering as smooth performance as Nvidia's. Now Team Green also supports something called DLSS, which is a super sampling technology, and this is something that AMD currently lacks. These are two great features that gives Nvidia a slight edge right now for sure. Anyway guys, all PC components can be found down below. Now we now have an official Discord server up and running, and if you wanna be a part of the community, ask questions either to me or any of the awesome viewers on the channel, you definitely wanna go ahead and join the Discord server today. Link to the Discord can be found down below. Now watch either of these two videos and I will see you guys in the next video.